to test their waterways. So that program is really expanding, and we'll probably be hiring another person to help us both do the water quality monitoring work and to manage the Adora boat, which is the amazing, boat that the Schwedels have donated, and we are in the process of getting all signed up to use as water keepers. We will be out on the water in the water keeper vessel very soon. So we're really excited about that. It's currently in my driveway, and so it looks very cool. And Kelly's mentioning to all the panelists as well that its official name is we have named it the RV Adora boat because it is really adorable. Other big news just from this week as well. We actually had a fertilizer ordinance that we've been working on for years, that Kelly Cox had a vision that we would have fertilizer ordinances across all the land in Miami-Dade County and also Broward. And after years of work going municipality by municipality trying to limit fertilizer use so that we prevent algae blooms in the water and the fish kills like the ones that we've seen recently as well, and seagrass die-off, in fact, too. We actually on Tuesday had a unanimous victory at the county level where they adopted what will soon be the strongest fertilizer ordinance in the state. So it's not the final step. We still have a few more steps to go through in the county, but this is a great indication that the commissioners are supportive of this, and we had a huge turnout from the public to support this item too. So that would be our 7th fertilizer ordinance that have been passed in South Florida in the last 2 years. So this and lots of other things also, but I want to let our board members say a few words too. So next slide, Casey. David and Maria. As I mentioned, David and Maria, I met when I first started at Miami Waterkeeper. They've been absolutely instrumental at changing the course of the organization and suggesting the name Miami Waterkeeper 2, by the way, which is a wonderful name, great branding decision, thank you. But for those of you who don't know, when we were first incorporated, we were Biscayne Bay Waterkeeper, and we really have a reach beyond the Bay, and a lot of people identify with the Miami names. We had a switch in I think 2015, but we have a lot of beautiful history as Biscayne Bay Waterkeeper as well. But David and Maria, if you want to tell us a little bit about what Miami Waterkeeper means to you, and amazing headshot, David, by the way, with the beautiful forest behind you like that.
Thanks, Rachel. Lauren, H, everybody, thanks for being here today. Without you guys, none of this happens. Look, our family goes back in Miami almost 83 years this year, roughly. Being born here as a kid, growing up on Miami Beach, I remember being able to literally walk in my backyard, get to the seawall, put on a mask as an 8-year-old kid with a little pole spear and a bag, and literally right off the seawall, I would pull lobster and snapper and bring it in, and we would eat that, right? It was beautiful, and we'd go out in our little skiff out into Biscayne Bay, and there were grass flats for miles and miles, and there would be dolphins and manatees and everything everywhere. And then as I got older, because I'm a very old man now, things have changed, right? You don't see the manatees like you used to. You don't see the coral formations in Biscayne Bay. When I was a kid, there was a lot there. You used to be able to walk off Crandon Park Beach literally with a bucket, and we would get stone crabs in knee-high water. Now, I'm not saying those creatures still aren't there. They are, but they're not in the abundance they once were. And the bays aren't what they were, and the ocean isn't what it was, and our reefs aren't what they were. And I got deeply concerned. And for us, I think what capped it off was when Charlie Crist was our governor, he had allocated a certain amount of money way back when, it seems like a century ago, which was going to be allocated towards dealing with the sewage outfall that we have, because we have treated sewage that is then pumped out in Miami-Dade and Broward County to the tune of approximately 300 million gallons a day. That's a day. So if you run that number every 10 days, there's 3 billion gallons, and it goes from there. And when the recession hit in '08, that budget disappeared and it wasn't invested. So after I called friends and I called other friends who are lawyers and a few politicians, I started asking folks like, what happened in this money? Where did it go? This is a huge problem. We have other ways to deal with these type of things. And nothing was happening. So we decided that we were going to act as a plaintiff and sue Miami-Dade County to take action to solve this problem. And literally walking out of the offices of Holland and Knight, one of the lawyers taps me on the shoulder and said, have you ever heard of this woman named Rachel Silverstein? And I said, no. And they said, well, you should really talk to her because she runs something called Waterkeeper here in Miami, and they might be able to help you with what you're doing. So I reached out to Rachel, and the next thing you know, I felt like I was at an Amway meeting and I bought everything she was selling me, right? we met in the Grove, and the next thing you know, I'm like, oh my God, everything you're telling me is everything that Maria and I and our family are passionate about. So that was, it feels like what, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago? I don't know. But whenever it was probably one of the greatest days of our community outreach personally. So let me touch on a few things. We are firm advocates that the future of Miami will rely on the decisions that we make today. We are either going to be a resilient community or we're not, based on the decisions and actions that we take. And the folks that are really going to carry this through for us, it's not everybody that's here at Waterkeeper. We're here to direct that. It's really going to be up to the youth of Miami. And to me, I define youth as, kids in elementary school all the way through to high school and into college and university, because you're going to inherit this place from us. And you want it to be standing. You want there to be earth here. You don't want it to be underwater. You want your water clean, right? And without you guys understanding what's at stake here, no change is going to take place. We can beat our drum and toot our horn as much as we want every single day, and we'll continue doing that. But unless we have an active outreach program and an education program across Miami-Dade County and Broward and other places, these folks are not going to be able to carry the torch forward and effectuate a change that makes a difference. And really that was the impetus for starting the Junior Ambassador program, is bringing these folks in and making them do this. The other thing was, we were a small organization, and H and I rowing around in a little rowboat every other day and saying, does that look like an oil slick? Does that look like a sewage spill? We needed people out there doing it. So the Thousand Eyes on the Water program, while we have 500 folks, we're still 500 short. And what's cool about this program is you can actually invest a little bit of your time registering online if you go to waterkeeper.org, and you can sign up for this program. Doesn't cost you a dime, and you can make a huge difference for us. At the end of the day, Waterkeeper for us is the number one, right? It's the number one thing where our family spends the most time on outside of homeschooling and doing homework right now.
And I think it was great for Simone to join the Junior Ambassador program, and how she's passionate about the environment now. And it opened her eyes, it educated her, and she's able to advocate for our water and making the environment clean, and she educates her friends. I think it's one of the greatest programs that we have right now.
There's no better motivating factor than when your kid comes home and wants to beat you up for not taking more civic activity and making a change. It's the one audience, they're the one audience that I think we'll always listen to, right? And you may not like the message all the time, but you're gonna at least listen to them. And I gotta tell you something, she's been great. The people and the other kids and young folks that she met at Waterkeeper have been fantastic advocates, and it's carried over. When I go to her school, I have had kids come up to me and say, "Oh, Mr. Schwedel, you know, thanks so much. We love the Waterkeeper thing. They're actually walking around. They talk about it, and they have advocacy groups inside of her school now that started as a result of that. So look, I am grateful. I'm grateful that Waterkeeper's here. I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to effectuate change, but it happens when people get active and do something. So I want to say thank you to Rachel, Lauren, H, everybody at Waterkeeper that does what they do. And it's just great to see it, where we've come from, where we're at, and talk about where we're going. So with that, Rachel, we'll turn it back over to you.
Are you guys available for all of our presentations moving forward? That was an amazing summary. I think you guys have also never missed a Waterkeeper event in probably 6 years. So thank you guys so much for your dedication, and thank you for sharing your experience.
Yep.
Meant so much. Casey, H. So H, again, board member from the beginning, on board with Miami Waterkeeper vision and mission from day one. And we're so thrilled to have you serving as our board chair now. So thank you for everything you've done for the organization over the many years.
Thank you, Rachel. You know, much like David, I'm a native. And when you grow up in Miami, like many Miamians, your story is a water-based story. My grandparents lived on the Venetian, and boating with my grandfather was always a treat. We moved to Coconut Grove and sailing in the bay down there, and racing sailboats at Coconut Grove Sailing Club was the next kind of interaction I had with the bay. We moved further south and down to South Dade and the parks like Matheson Hammock and the Southern Bay and Stiltsville. You grow up swimming and diving. And I remember, I don't know if you guys had this, at Palmetto Elementary, they brought a pool into the lunchroom, and we actually learned how to swim in elementary school. But fishing in the canals, canoeing in the Everglades, water skiing off Key Biscayne, lobstering, fishing, just drinking. We all love water, or just eating at any of the wonderful waterfront restaurants that allow us to interact with our bay. For us now, we have 3 children, my wife Robin and I, and to be able to share the bay's treasures with them and get the younger generation keyed into the importance of it, and the focus and investment in the resiliency. Now is the time. The bay is our economic engine. It's gorgeous, and it needs our help. Want to tell you a little bit in detail about our water quality testing program. I think there's the Guide app is that Rachel mentioned earlier, is how you can really take advantage of all the water quality testing that goes on. The water quality testing that occurs both by the state of Florida and then supplemented by us, as you heard, at a number of additional sites, is all posted on the app, so you can get up-to-date quality tests of all the local beaches. The water quality testing site, though, comes from generous grant funding and sponsorship, as well as the local governments getting involved. And what we test for is fecal indicator bacteria that is associated with wastewater. Some people call it E. coli sidekick. And today, more than ever, with the algae blooms, with the die-offs, the dramatic changes that are occurring need to be monitored, measured, and communicated to the people to keep us safe as we continue to live in this environment as it changes literally beneath our feet. And so I am proud to be part of Waterkeeper. I'm glad for the 9 years I spent to date being involved, and I thank everybody involved. David, you've had a huge impact. Lauren, obviously, kicking us off, and Rachel, Kelly, and the entire team. It really has been quite a journey to get to where we are and celebrate this 10th year anniversary.
H, thank you so much. And this is fantastic. I'm going to hopefully do more of these together. I love this. It's great to do this with you guys. And I love hearing your passion and your stories about why you're involved. It's very inspiring for me. So thank you, H. And Lauren is coming to us internationally tonight. But you're a Miami girl at heart, we know, and it's amazing to still have you involved here with Miami Waterkeeper, with the vision that you had in founding the organization and your history with Waterkeeper Alliance. And you certainly helped me navigate the waters of running an organization with your experience running your own Fraser Riverkeeper organization. in Canada, and it's been invaluable to me to have your advice and your friendship throughout this whole process. So tell us more about being engaged and involved.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. And thank you so much for hosting. I'm really loving it. Cannot believe it's been 10 years. It's pretty mind-blowing. But when I look at that slide and I see this incredible just mosaic of accomplishments and impact, it's really incredible and just mind-blowing and fulfilling and thirsty to keep going. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. I'm really thrilled to join today to talk about a passion of mine, which is legal advocacy. And yes, even though I live in Canada now, I'm here in Vancouver, I grew up in Miami, and I grew up, swimming and fishing and learning from and loving our waters. And it just was very formative for me in my development and my ability to feel connected to nature and to the environment. And it's from that place of connection that I felt inspired to protect what I love. So it's always about connecting people, and from that place of connection, you inspire a love of that water body, and from that love, people feel inspired to protect. So I went to law school in New York, and I worked for Waterkeeper Alliance. And when I was working there, I was talking with a childhood friend of mine, Alexis Siegel, about how at the time she was living in New York as well, going to law school. And it was a dream to get a Waterkeeper in Miami up and running. And Alexis Siegel became the first Waterkeeper. She was a Waterkeeper for 4 years. She did a tremendous job getting us up and running. And Rachel has taken the reins and done a phenomenal job, as we all know. And for 10 years, I guess Miami Waterkeeper now has really been Miami's chief law enforcer when it comes to safeguarding our water resources. And I wanted to focus on legal advocacy because I think it's so important that we recognize how vital, or just how imperative of a role public policy plays in our efforts to bring about the permanent protections for Biscayne Bay and for the extended watershed. And Miami Waterkeeper is brave. I mean, they're one of the few environmental organizations in Miami willing to use that most powerful tool, which is at our disposal to protect our bay, and that's the law. And this concept of having waterkeepers, which are individuals like Rachel, acting as non-governmental environmental monitors and enforcers, of course supported by a community of watershed-based grassroots organizations, to protect and defend our waters. It's been around, that concept's really been around since the 60s, and when it got started with Hudson Riverkeeper, and it's inspired a movement of waterkeepers around the world. We've got over 340 waterkeeper organizations in 46 countries now, and also in the state of Palestine. And it's really incredible to see how they can influence global development of environmental law. And so Miami Waterkeeper specifically has really taken up this concept of legal advocacy in a major way over the years and been incredibly successful. And as I said, it is very courageous to stand there and to stand in the shoes of, an enforcer and take down and take up this concept of standing up to power, and speaking truth to power is a very, very powerful concept. And it's a very, I would say, important function in our society, in our democracy, to have citizens standing there, engaging and holding government and polluters accountable. And that inspired me when I was at school and representing Hudson Riverkeeper in New York. And this concept of holding polluters accountable and protecting and defending our waterways as citizens just really spoke to me. And it's amazing to see how successful Miami Waterkeeper has been in this space. And I'm not going to get into too much specifics, but a lot of people ask me, like, how does that work exactly? And so I'm just going to talk super briefly about one of the laws that I love the most, which is the Clean Water Act. As an example, it was passed in 1972 to protect our waters, with a bit of pushback around the first Earth Day. And it was the same time that Clean Air Act was passed. And it was enacted to prevent the discharge of pollution into what are navigable waters without a permit. So in a way, it does legalize pollution, in that as long as you have a permit, you can pollute. But you can't pollute without a permit, and you can't violate that permit. So we've had a lot of fun kind of going in and seeing where these violations exist. It does remain one of the nation's most popular laws, but again, unless it's enforced, it's really just a suggestion, right? And that's where our groups come in, because oftentimes the government can't be everywhere all the time. They are limited. They have limited resources, limited time, their political will wanes and waxes. And that's where citizens really are vital and crucial, and they step in when there are gaps. And so private citizens like you and I, we have the ability to enforce clean water laws when that government is unwilling or unable to do so. So those little provisions, those citizen suit provisions they're called, they take enforcement of water quality laws. They allow us to take it into our own hands, and they allow us to sue violators in federal court. And it's been a very powerful tool for us, and something I feel very passionately about. And because of this, we've been able to kind of go up against the Port of Miami using a similar provision in Endangered Species Act. We've been able to, hold the feet to the fire using NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act, for Port Everglades, just 30 minutes up the road. We've been able to stop sewage leaks over and over, oftentimes just by threatening with a 60-day letter to stop a violation. A polluter has 60 days to get it together before we take them to court. And just by threatening them with that 60-day letter, we've been able to stop violation after violation. So it's a very, very powerful tool. And I'm just so grateful to the team for building something so hugely impactful. And I'm honored to be here standing with you all still 10 years in. 10 years more to go, and then some. So
absolutely. Lauren, that was a fantastic summary, and it really sums up why I feel that those citizen suit provisions that give individuals the right to enforce our seminal environmental laws are so empowering. And I really didn't fully appreciate that before I started working at Waterkeeper, and the role that citizens have to play in order to make these laws really meet their full potential, and what Congress intended for them to do when the laws were written. So it's an amazing thing to be a part of these actions and to see the impact that can come from this type of work. So it's an incredible legacy of the Waterkeeper Alliance, and really proud to be carrying that on. So thank you, everybody, and I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your experiences and what being a part of Miami Waterkeeper means to you. And I would love to take some questions from folks who are here. Of course, hope you really enjoyed episode 2 tonight. Episode 3 airing tomorrow. We'll have the Facebook watch party. You can, of course, always become a member of Miami Waterkeeper if you're not already a member. You can support one of our programs, follow us on social media so you can find out when to take action and how to get involved, and sign up for an event. And hopefully soon we'll have more in-person events, but you can also do the online training. We have lots of educational materials associated not only with Waves of Change, where there's curriculum for grades 6 through 12, so that if you're watching with your kids at home, you can also use the curriculum to have it really be a great learning experience while many of you are at home or homeschooling, as some of us are. So we meant that to be a resource. There's quizzes online. There's all sorts of activities for the whole family. So definitely make sure to check those out and share the information and join us. Happy to take questions. Casey, I don't know how it works. I turn it over to you to moderate.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to talk and ask a question in person, I'm happy to allow you to do so. There's a way that you can just send a reaction on the bottom. I have a different view. Maybe one of the attendees can, I think it's either a thumbs up or request to speak, and we can do it that way.
Button at the bottom first, right? Or you can drop it in the chat.
You can drop it in the chat and I can read it to you, or you can raise your hand.
I think Matthew has a question.
Okay, I'm gonna allow you to talk, Matthew.
Lauren, is he allowed?
Yeah. First of all, well done. I'm so thrilled about everything you guys are doing. Encouraged with the message you're sending to everyone in Miami. Such an important job that you guys are undertaking, and have done so much in a relatively short period of time. That's the first cheerleading note I can say from the sidelines, as we just support everything you guys are doing. I guess on a more specific question, what are the age groups on the volunteers that we can get involved? I mean, from our side, we have 3 young ones. What is the demographic for the volunteers that you guys are getting involved? And the other question, which is not really related, is what do you think is the best platform for us to point interested parties to? Is it just the Instagram, the website, or something else that, in addition to these webinars, of course, is there something else that you would say is the best way for them to participate and get involved?
Yeah, great questions, Matthew, and thanks for the kind words also. Really appreciate the support. I think we have activities for almost every age level, and if kids come with parents, almost all of the events are age appropriate. For activities we have on the boat, like boat tour, I think we have a minimum age of 14 to come on a boat with us. And then the Junior Ambassador Program is specifically targeted at high school students, although we have had middle school students participate. Like I think Simone was in middle school when she did the program with us, for example. And then in terms of platform, I think we have the largest following and the most interactions on Instagram, but we post on all of the platforms, and we are going to be launching a new website later this year too. So hopefully the website it'll look very similar, but it'll have a lot more interactive features. It'll be easier to find information that you're interested in. So like if you're interested in coral reefs, it'll take you to lots of different coral reef pages and blogs and news articles and things like that. So definitely check that out. And there's lots of ways to engage on the website and social media as well.
Thank you. Great. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Matthew. Any other questions from the crowd? Drop us a chat. You can raise your hand. You can figure out how to do it. Do any of you guys have any other stories or anecdotes you want to share while we're still chatting? We just have a couple more minutes. I've got more. Yeah, there's lots of things that we've done over the last 10 years that have been major water wins that are really hard to quantify or to put into a slide. And one of the big ones that I'm also really proud of, but is hard to encapsulate quickly, is that a few years ago, the state was looking to change a rule that would have allowed more of over 80 different kinds of toxic, carcinogenic, neurotoxic chemicals in our water. And it would have increased by orders of magnitude everyone's cancer risk if you ate Florida seafood even once a week. And we wrote op-eds and we organized the community. They didn't have any public hearings about this in South Florida. The nearest one, I think, was a 4 or 5 hour drive away. The board that was supposed to approve this had the environmental seat and the local government seats both empty when this was voted on. And it would have really put Floridians at risk in favor of allowing people to just dump toxic waste into our waterways. So I'm really proud of using science and actually getting scientists to do statistical analyses and to rebut what the state was putting forward was a really key piece, and also the organizing we did and having people write letters. And we were able to build a coalition of waterkeepers around Florida, and Earth Justice got involved, and lots of other groups got involved, and all together we were able to actually stop that law. So that's a really important critical piece. And another thing that's a huge issue that we work on is Florida Power and Light and the Turkey Point plant. We're really concerned about the safety moving forward with sea level rise. And so we've also been involved in a challenge to get them to consider sea level rise in the planning of that plant, much like we did with the sewage treatment plants as well. Trying to get sea level rise and climate change planning to be considered as we plan for decades in advance as the seas are rising in Florida. Because we know that we've had about 6 inches of sea level rise since 1996 here in Florida, but that's meant that we have over 300% more flooding events. So just 6 inches is 300% more flooding. So really important issues coming up all the time with sea level rise. And we have a big septic tank campaign coming up soon this month that'll launch. We have over 100,000 septic tanks still in Miami-Dade County, when in the 70s we were told, to get rid of the septic tanks and not to put any more in. And we still have them, and we haven't gotten rid of them, and we're still permitting more. And Marcelo Fernandez and Kelly on our board have been really at the forefront of highlighting septic problems as they saw their street repeatedly flood and their neighbors putting in septic tanks that were already underwater when they dug. So we were on CNN together talking about it and showing everybody septic tanks. But watch out for the septic campaign coming soon too, because that will be big change and a more resilient future for Miami if we can get that going. I think we have a couple of questions too.
Yes, we have questions.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so first question. How did the first reading go with the fertilizer ordinance on this week?
The fertilizer ordinance passed unanimously at the county. So the next step is to go to committee, but all of the commissioners have already basically approved it. So we just have to make sure that the really strong provisions that make that law protect water quality are not stripped out in the rest of the process. But this is a huge win and an amazing first step. So we're really pleased. And once we get Miami-Dade County done, we'll head up to Broward and hopefully do the same there.
Okay, next question. What are the key issues for citizens to be aware of / involved with in 2021?
So thank you for that question. That's a great question. So some of the key issues that we're doing in 2020 are definitely going to carry over to 2021. But as you may know, in August, we had a very severe fish kill in northern Biscayne Bay. And literally overnight, thousands, if not tens of thousands of fish and other types of wildlife suffocated in place in the bay because of the buildup of pollution. And it made our beautiful bay, that's a national park and the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve, and generating billions of dollars a year for our local economy, turn into a dead zone overnight. And the fundamental causes why that happened is too much pollution from 4 things: from sewage leaks, from septic tanks, from stormwater runoff, and from fertilizer overuse. So we really address the fertilizer piece in this ordinance, and if that can pass, that will do a lot for addressing runoff. And as the fertilizer gets into the water, it does what it does on land. It fertilizes the algae in bodies of water. And when you get an over-fertilization of algae, you get an algae bloom. And that can kill seagrass, and it can also use up all the oxygen in the water and not leave enough left over for the fish, and it can kill the seagrass. And those are the things that are happening in northern Biscayne Bay. So we've got to address those 4 pollution sources urgently now through 2021. So we'll focus on getting the fertilizer ordinance passed, and then moving forward, as I mentioned, we have the septic campaign launching. So it'll launch later this year, and then we'll be working on that and getting hopefully major infrastructure projects and funded and enacted through 2021 to get septic tanks removed and to have homes hooked up to the sewer system. And then the sewer system also needs fixing because it is now over 50 years old and not prepared for sea level rise. So we need more funding to fix that too. And all of these things seem expensive, but they're really crucial to us being able to continue to live in Miami. And it's not discretionary funding to have functioning sanitation system in South Florida. It's crucial for our ability to continue to live here into the future. So we need to make those investments now, and we've put them off for too long, and we're seeing the effect of that in things like this fish kill. Kelly, it looks like, has a question for the board members.
Why are members important?
So members are particularly important for Miami Waterkeeper, not only because it creates a coalition of community that are really important for making change and having our voices heard, and provides financial support for the organization. But Lauren, do you want to explain why membership is so important if we're bringing cases under the Clean Water Act?
Okay, so, I think I know where you're going with this. So in order for us to actually bring a lawsuit under the Clean Water Act or some of the other statutes that I mentioned, you have to be able to show something called standing. And that means you have the ability to stand in that space and that you have a right and a legal right to actually bring that case forward. So the members who are part of your organization have to actually use, enjoy, recreate, or have some connection to that water body. And if you can't prove your standing, no matter how solid your case is, otherwise you're kicked out of court. So it's really important that we can demonstrate the reach of our members in our community, in our watershed, and show that there's actual usage of our waters happening. So the more members, the better, and it makes us strong and robust and infallible in court.
So become a member and go out and use the water, and then we'll be able to protect it. That's perfect. Any other questions, Casey?
Hold on. What kind of fertilizer is supposed to be used on the East Coast, or specifically in South Florida?
So part of the provisions of the fertilizer ordinance is not to reduce all fertilizer use, but to reduce fertilizer overuse. So oftentimes we're putting fertilizer down in the summer months when in Miami it rains basically every day. So the plants don't have time to take up the fertilizer before it's rained, and it's all washed off the fertilizer down the drain or into a canal, and it's all ending up in the bay. So it's not helping your plants because they're not using it, and it's wasting you time and money, and it's creating a big pollution problem. So all of the fertilizer ordinance that we recommend have a period where between May and September that fertilizers are of any kind are not allowed to be applied, and they're not helping the landscaping anyway. And the other piece is not applying fertilizer within about 20 feet, 15 to 20 feet of a waterway. And that gives the fertilizer room to, if it does rain, it can move and not all wash out into the water. We also recommend using fertilizer that is at least 50% slow release. And that means that it won't all get released at once if it does rain. And to use fertilizer that has no phosphorus. And we actually have such phosphorus-rich soils in South Florida that you don't need to add any more to your landscaping in order to make your plants healthy. So it's just adding pollution. So what we've tried to do is really to cut out the excesses in what is most people's fertilizer use. But importantly, and something to know, is that this doesn't affect agriculture. And as Lauren can tell you, agriculture pollution is largely carved out of the Clean Water Act also. So this is really focused on residential lands and municipal landscaping. David, do you have a question? I thought you were going to say something.
No.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Okay. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Another question is, and any of the board members feel free to answer as well. Can you talk a little bit about the sediment clouds that appear in Biscayne Bay and what the city's doing to mitigate that, if that's an issue?
Does anyone else want to take this one, or I can?
That one's all you.
There are more for all of you.
So oftentimes some of the pollution reports that we get are very commonly milky colored water coming out of the storm drains. And this is sediment usually coming from construction sites that is washing down the drain and ending up in the bay. And over time, it takes our clear, beautiful water of our bay and makes it cloudy. And it can block the light from getting to the seagrass at the bottom. It can clog the gills of fish, and it eventually can build up and smother the seabed. And so it's one of these death by 1,000 cuts sorts of pollution reports that we get pretty frequently. It's the same thing, incidentally, but on a very different scale as what we sued over in the port dredging litigation, because they were dredging a massive dredging project and scooping up tons and tons of sediment and essentially dispersing really fine particles that buried the coral reef offshore. Over 200 football fields worth of coral reef was wiped out during that project. And the science that we did afterwards, although the Army Corps said that only 6 corals were killed in the project, our research, and I spent a year with colleagues at University of Miami publishing a paper showing that over 560,000 corals were killed at a minimum during that dredging project. So the sediment plumes that come out have been reported more and more frequently lately. And the city of Miami is taking action on that, and Commissioner Ken Russell actually has an item tomorrow, going before the city commission tomorrow, that is going to increase the penalties of the plumes when they're reported, and give the city the ability to inspect and to potentially have a stop work order if they see chronic violations. And this has really broad support, and we're really hopeful that it will limit a lot of the sediment pollution that we're seeing in these reports. And they want to work directly with the Thousand Eyes on the Water program. So they've contacted us, and they've given us a special email address that we are to notify the Public Works Department and the Building Department and the city manager immediately whenever we get any of these reports. Any other questions? I think someone just chatted me one. I think we can wrap up, or we can take one more if we have another question, Case.
Okay, let me see.
Thank you guys again so much for joining us. It's wonderful to see you. And it's great to have everybody join in and ask questions and celebrate with us.
I think that's it. So if anyone else has
any other questions for us, I'm just kidding. What's in store for the next 10 years? We have a lot of big plans. A whole fleet of boats, patrol members in every corner of the bay, networks of monitoring, fleets of attorneys, a whole legal team, a whole monitoring team, a whole outreach team.
We were put out of business because there was no need for Waterkeeper anymore, because we took such great care of our water bodies that there was no need. Let's put that out there.
That's a great vision. Work ourselves to have a job.
Yeah, what does the board want to see? Maybe we can take a piece or a perspective from each one of the board members. It's a question.
I think it's awareness. It takes a village, right? David, I think you kind of touched on that earlier, and that I kind of think of this organization and Rachel as the Waterkeeper, as the Lorax, speaking for our body of water. But there is one Lorax, but it takes the village to turn it around and to respect the environment and do the right things, and every little bit helps. Turning the faucet off when you're brushing your teeth, every little bit helps of just saving water, protecting water. And we're all part of it.
I think that's great, H. I love that, and I think you're right. The community, it's a community of people working for swimmable, drinkable, fishable water, and it's that community that's going to be able to really take us to the next level with that much public pressure, keep the pressure on, keep the eyes, keep engaged. And I have to say, the water monitoring hub that Rachel and Miami Waterkeeper have been able to build in the last couple of years has been absolutely extraordinary. It has become one of the most sophisticated and well-respected and established water monitoring hubs in the country for all Waterkeeper organizations, if not around the world. Top 2 or 3. It's absolutely remarkable what they've been able to do, especially now, that they're setting precedent by getting contracts from the city to do the water monitoring, because the city doesn't have the funds or the capacity or the ability to do the water monitoring that they're supposed to be doing, and they're actually hiring more to do. They're setting up, precedent for other waterkeeper groups and other nonprofits all around the country and the world, really, and really becoming as sophisticated and impactful waterkeeper organization can be. So I'm just I'm thrilled with what you've accomplished so far, and I'm very excited moving into this next decade.
I honestly, Rachel, I honestly feel like if we don't do what we're doing now and continue it, Miami's going to be a great risk. There's just no doubt in my mind. The amount of pollution, the amount of just lack of focus on what it's going to take to make Miami count again. You know, we used to have a slogan, the government here, they used to call Miami the city of the future. Remember that? Miami is the city of the future, and that was their campaign slogan. And they had it for years, and then it kind of went away. And for the longest time, you know, I remember attending some of these meetings and thinking, you know, we really could be a cool place. And the one thing that draws everybody here is the water. You know, I have friends of mine that live, like we all do, all over the world. And when they think of Miami, in their mind, they see the ocean and Miami Beach, right? And it's not until they get here and they travel around and they see the mangrove forest that we have, right? And they know they can go kayaking, and then they go out to the Everglades and they see what we have. And everything we have lives on, in, and around water. It literally does. We float on a sponge, for God's sake, right? So I honestly believe that if we do not take care of what's in front of us, and I know we've all said a lot of things here today, but the one thing I want to leave everybody with is this. It comes down to what you're going to do. I write checks for Waterkeeper. Rachel is the most expensive friend I have. Okay? And every single time we write a check, Maria and I, we look at it and we're glad to do it, simply because of the fact, to me, it is the biggest impetus for change that we have, is to keep this organization growing and going. You know, what you've done with this, Lauren and H and Rach, in the last 10 years is amazing. But what has to happen in the next 10 has to be 100 times that, because we no longer have the luxury of time. 10 years from now is going to be, it's not like what 20 years ago was in terms of time. So I honestly believe what I see is a lot of young people that are influenced by what's happening. They care and they want to make a difference. So if you're on this call and you've been on the call long enough, write a check, go to Miami Waterkeeper, help us out. But more than that, get active with what we're doing. Everybody that's here now has family. You want to care about your kids. You want to take them to a beach that's clean. You want to swim in a water. We check that damn swim app all the time. And every time I see that there's a poop alert, my kids even say, ew, there's bacteria at Virginia Key and we can't go. Why is this still happening? They ask me. Thank God we have it. Thank God we have it. If Waterkeeper wasn't here, I guarantee you this city, we could be the city of the future. We could be.
Yeah, I mean, water is what makes Miami, Miami, right?
It does.
And I think you're absolutely right. These issues are more urgent than ever. And I really want to thank you guys for everything you've done for the organization, for being here tonight, for showing up for this cause and for the community and for the water. And my whole staff, my whole team, thank you guys for all of your hard work in putting this event together and also fighting for clean water every day. It's an incredible team and super proud to know all of you. And If anybody has any other questions or things come up, we're always reachable. Rachel@miamiwaterkeeper.org. Get in touch with us. We want to hear from you. And thank you again for everything.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You guys too. Great to see you guys.
You too. Lauren, great to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you for everything.
Yeah.